God, you are going to absolutely love this build. As you can see, we are bullying bosses here in Elden Ring, and this is a new game +4 playthrough. This particular build is going to have these bosses and this game begging for you to take it easy on them. So I'm going to take you through every single aspect of this build, whether it be talismans, weapons you're using, gear we're going to be wearing, all that kind of stuff. This is going to be one of the best faith strength builds that you're going to come across here on YouTube. So without further ado, let's get into it. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Listen, we're going to go right into what makes this build so good immediately, so we're going to get right to the point. Now, we're going to be stacking a few really good talismans to make this particular build work real well. You're going to be doing a lot of damage, you're going to be having a ton of fun, and you're going to be spreading fire, using fire, and smashing people with giant weapons. What is not to love? So the first icon slash talisman we're going to be looking at here is the Godfrey icon. This icon is going to allow your charged spells, or incantations rather, to actually do more damage than they would beforehand. So that works out a ton with some of our good incantations we have, especially the fire spells that we have to charge up and release. The next one we're going to be using is the Fire Scorpion Charm. This is going to add to that fire damage. It's going to raise the fire attack, but it is also going to lower your damage negation. So you will be doing a lot more damage with your fire incantations, but you are going to be taking a little bit more damage in the long run. So be wary of that. Typically, you're not going to get hit a ton with this build anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. The next talisman we are using is going to be the Shard of Alexander. This is going to greatly boost the attack power of your skills, so once again, adding more power into our skills, more damage, giving us the easiest route through this game because we are going to be literally destroying everything. And the final talisman that we are going to be using is the Phlox Canvas Talisman. Now, I've used this talisman before in some of my faith builds, but it is almost a necessity if you're using incantations and want to do a lot of damage with them. This is going to raise your potency with your incantations greatly. Now, basically, all that this is going to do is all these talismans are going to tie into each other, stacking on each other, making it so that you are an unstoppable, flammable god in this game, and it's going to make things a ton of fun. When you buff all the way up, you are going to be doing damage upon damage upon damage, and there's very few things that can actually stand in the way of you. Now, where this build is going to show a little bit of weakness is against people that are immune or have resistance to fire. That is a big problem. I have encountered a few of those enemies in this game, like the giant worm, and that takes a while to get through. You're going to rely solely on your strength and pretty much stunning that enemy to get him down. So other than that, I haven't really found any other weaknesses with this particular build. It is a lot of fun. So moving on, after the talismans, we're going to talk about a few of the odds and ends that we are using to also help tie into this build. Now, we're going to have the giant seal at +16. You are going to notice that some of my stuff is not all the way leveled up, which is totally fine because I just don't have enough stones, and this is new game +4, so I've been trying different things out and raising up some different weapons. So we have this +16 giant seal. This is going to greatly boost your Giant's Flame incantations. More flame damage, more incantation damage. It's a win-win. The next thing we're going to be looking at is the Erd Tree Seal at +9. This has a faith rank scaling of S, which means all of your incantations that you are going to use with this particular build are going to hit harder, do more damage, and they're overall going to be better because this faith scaling is the highest scaling it can possibly be. So you may be asking yourself, why am I using 2 seals? Well, I'm not using 2 seals. I just have 2 seals equipped. The first one is what I'll quote-unquote be using, but the second one, as long as it's inside of the equipped slot, I still get the perks from it, which is the flame damage that I want. Now, moving on to the weapons. We can use a few different weapons in this particular build, but these are going to be the 2/3 that I'll show you in just a second that I feel are just god tier when it comes to this type of gameplay. First and foremost, the Blasphemous Blade. It does amazing amounts of fire damage. It does great physical damage. The swing pattern is fantastic for what you need in this game, especially when you're running this build where typically you are one-handing the sword. It has a great horizontal swing, and also the Ash of War, which is Taker's Flames, is one of, if not, I would argue, the best Ash of War in the entire game. The other Ash of War that we're going to be looking at that could probably contest for that slot is on our next weapon, which is going to be the Fire Greatsword. This is just a greatsword with a flame Ash of War on it, therefore making it a Fire Greatsword. We're going to have the Flame of the Redmanes on this greatsword, and this Ash of War is insane. It does so much damage, and it staggers enemies with 2 or 3 uses of this particular Ash of War, which pretty much breaks the game entirely. So we're going to be using that on this weapon, and the third and final weapon that you can use when you are going about this build is going to be the Magma Worm's Scale Sword. Now, you may be asking yourself, why the Magma Worm's Scale Sword? Well, it is one of the only weapons that scales with strength and faith, and considering this build is both of those things, we are going to be scaling very, very well with this particular weapon. The Ash of War Magma Guillotine, also, with all of the buffs to fire damage that we currently have equipped, is going to do so much damage. It is going to put magma all over the ground. You're going to get area of effect damage, damage over time. You're going to get the initial damage with the strike. It is a very, very fun weapon to use with this build. I have enjoyed using it, and I highly recommend one of these 3 weapons, if not slotting 2 of them if you have the stats to do so, just so you can switch back and forth between them. Now, taking a look at our gear, we are purely in the aesthetic. That is it. There is no benefit to having any one particular piece of this gear on. It just looks really, really cool. Obviously, this is a fire build. The helmet looks like it is melted. Also, the cloak is fantastic with the other 2 pieces of gear that we have with the gauntlets and the leggings. And I feel like it goes really well overall with each individual weapon that we currently can wield for this build. Now, the actual names of these items are the Fingerprint Helm, the Knight's Cavalry Armor, Blythe's Gauntlets, and the Knight's Cavalry Greaves. I feel like overall this goes well, looks really, really cool, and it just goes along with the aesthetic of everything burning around you and your armor is kind of melting upon you. Now, before we continue on any further and I show you exactly how this build works and what it builds upon, I need to show you the Flask of Wandering Physic that we do have, because this is pivotal to allowing you to do as much flame damage as humanly possible in this game. You are going to be using the Flame Shrouding Cracked tier and the Opaline Bubble tier, because that's going to give me the sphere around me that's going to negate the first hit of damage that I receive from a boss or an NPC or whatever it may be. But the Flame Shrouding Cracked tier is going to temporarily boost your fire damage. This is massive. This is going to help all of the fire damage and all of the talismans we have stack on top of each other to then allow you to just bully and crush all the bosses in this game and all the NPCs. Now, since this is New Game Plus 4, I do want to show you my stats real quick, just so you can see what I'm rocking with and to see that this is attainable at plus 4 if you want to do that. So I have Vigor at 60, Mind at 23, Endurance at 50, Strength is at 80, Dexterity is at 20, Intelligence is at 7, Faith is at 80, and Arcane is at 21 for a total level of 262. This is the way that I'm able to get all the stats up as high as I need them to be to do this type of damage, but if you don't have all of these levels, this is still a very good first game playthrough build, because there's no double weapons needed. All these incantations and all this gear you can attain from the very, very first playthrough, so you don't need to play over and over and over again to use this build. So now I'm going to show you how this build works. You're going to drink your flask, give you extra fire damage. You're then going to summon your Mimic tier, because why the heck wouldn't? You're going to use Golden Vow to get your extra damage boost. Then you're going to use Flame Grant Me Strength to give you even more flame damage, and you are just going to melt people into oblivion. This strategy works really, really well for NPCs like you just saw, but it also works extraordinarily well against bosses that could pose a problem if you weren't using this type of build. I have done so much damage to this guy already, and I've sustained 0 damage from him. I've made some really good faith builds before, but with the intention of adding strength to this one, just so I could carry around massive weapons and use incantations to shred enemies to pieces, it is just an extraordinarily fun way to play. If you guys have any type of faith build that you think is better than this one, or any type of faith build that you think I should take note of, leave it down in the comments below, because I'd love to start a conversation with you guys about how we can optimize these builds better and make the best builds possible in this game. So as far as incantations that we're going to use with this particular build, we're going to be using Golden Vow, we're going to be using Flame Grant Me Strength. Both those combined are going to stack your damage together, making you do more damage and hitting harder. Also, Theodoric's Magma, this is just a fun one to use. I've used it a few times, and it kind of goes well with this build. These next two are really, really big. Fire's Deadly Sin, which is going to cause you to burn the ground around you, and it's also going to light you on fire, giving you damage over time to anybody who's close to you. Burn O Flame is going to shoot giant columns of flame up, and it's going to do a ton of damage with this build. Also, Flame of the Fell God, this is going to summon a giant sphere of fire, and then it's going to burn the ground and also do more area of effect damage. These last two spells here are Catch Flame and O Flame. Both of those are the same thing, except O Flame can be charged, and it just makes it so that you can shoot out flame really, really fast and just hit somebody right before they hit you and get some extra damage in on top of that. You can use Blood Flame Blade if you want to, but it is not necessarily. It's just something that I put in there just to do a little bit of testing with. It does work on occasion, but overall, those are the incantations that I'm using for this particular build. Alright, so that is all for this particular video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you can know when I'm making more content. I am super excited to be making more build videos for you, so stay tuned for that. And until next time, everybody, have fun, enjoy the game, and I'll see you in the next one.